does will derail what I'm trying to do. Questions and opinions, and if you want to heckle me at the end, I'm good with that. Quick story. I started what I'm doing just over 3 years ago. And in January of 2018, I was going down to Austin. I spoke. A gentleman I know named Gary Smith. He's actually the vice president of inside sales at Elastic now. I knew him from my time in my Oracle life. And he asked me, hey, do you want to present at an AISP chapter meeting? And I said, yeah, that sounds cool, because here in Montreal, we are allergic to sales and money. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I want to get down to a place where people care about sales, because that's who I'm apparently proposing I help. And I connected with Scott on LinkedIn, and I was like, who's in Austin? I said, oh, this guy, Scott Leese, like he mentioned. I said, hey, Scott, I offer something called comedy writing for sales teams. Would you be interested when I'm meeting in Austin? And he said, yeah, that sounds interesting. I said, yes, finally, my first meeting is with a crazy person. He is agreeing to meet me. So with that said, I'm really grateful that Scott has decided to invite me here. I just wanted to show you guys, well, let's have a little toast to Scott. This is, just so we're clear, this is Canadian tequila. Guys, it's 5% alcohol, has lots of bubbles, and comes in really tall cans. We just really love our alcohol.
Salud.
Salud, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy
Molson ice.
This is such a random day to be drinking together. So awesome. Let me, Scott's a LinkedIn influencer. There's so many other LinkedIn influencers other than Scott. And one recently posed the question on their LinkedIn feed, should sales professionals learn to code? And my reply was, only if they constantly miss quota.
That's good.
That's pretty good.
You can never have.
It took me a minute, but that's pretty good.
You can never have too many skills during a global pandemic. We're all taught that during this pandemic, we all seen the stuff on LinkedIn that, when the moment where everything got shut down and we're all working from home, every single person on LinkedIn was, now is the time to sell with empathy. And I agree with that, because research shows that salespeople who use empathy do better. But there's other research that says that 10 out of 10 sociopaths disagree.
Yep.
Thank you. Psychology joke, everybody.
Yep.
I was recently helping so what I do is I help sales teams write jokes for their cold outreach that demonstrate understanding of prospects' challenges. And I helped a sales training company. And the joke we wrote was, I speak with a lot of CROs who struggle with things like discounting, long cycles, and slippage. And this saddens me, because a sales executive's problems shouldn't sound like a midnight trip to Walmart. All right, we are off to a good start. I normally like to start off, actually. I don't tell jokes right at the gate. Normally what I do is I tell you guys how I look like some weird combination of Bert from Sesame Street and, Ross and Monica's dad. Some of you guys get Netflix, the rest of you remember the 90s. And with that said, I think it's time I share my screen, and maybe we cut to the chase here. Let me click share screen. My Mac is host disabled. Scott, can you let me share my screen?
Yeah. Oversight. The only person worse with technology than you is me.
I don't know about that.
These people know that I'm pretty bad.
Don't
nod your head. I see Brian Marzo nodding his head. Brian Marzo nodding his head about my uselessness.
Were you the one that ended one of the Thursday night sales at one time? That was you, man.
Jesus Christ, Brian. Just silently agree, okay? Think it, don't say it. Think it, don't say it.
In his defense, he was only shaking his head. Was it filled with rocks? You couldn't hear him.
That was aggressive. I love it.
Should be good.
You guys can hear me okay, though, right?
Yeah, you're good, John.
Good. All right, let me just move this. And let's present. All right, guys, welcome. Now that we're warmed up, we're inebriated, I hope. I'm going to talk to you guys about comedy writing for sales professionals. as soon as my screen loads up. Great. So really what this is about is how I help sales teams roast their prospects' pain so sales reps can make them laugh and everyone can keep their day job. I mean, my goal is to help individual sales teams. Whoever, I do hear some noise in the background. That is the one person I will ask to mute. If there was a child or a pet or a sales leader who is calling to fire you, maybe it's best. That is a request I have. So my goal is to help sales teams write jokes that, like I said, roast your prospects' pain, and literally can be used by every rep through whether it's cold outreach or whether it's discovery calls, whether it's to make key business points. But we're going to talk about that power of making your prospects laugh, not in a frivolous way, but in a way that really helps you demonstrate an understanding of their challenges, which just so happens you solve for them, and so much more. So let's get going here. There we go. There I am with my stunt double. Normally I tell the joke that I was an actor and I played the role of Bert, then I played Ross and Monica's dad. Grover's my personal stylist. I'm moving on. And I can't see. There we go. So who am I, guys? Just a little bit about me. Let me just move. There we go. All right. Who am I, guys? I'm a weird bird, in case you haven't figured that one out. I started my career in sales completely by accident. I ended up as an SDR at Oracle in the early 2000s. I moved into an inside sales role. And then I left Oracle to join an Oracle partner. I kind of didn't want to be motivated by, helping a company raise its share price. I wanted to help grow a firm. So I joined the premier Oracle partner in Eastern Canada, or what became the premier Oracle solutions provider in Eastern Canada. We specialize in things like ERP and business intelligence, remote database administration support. And I helped grow that company from 8 people to 35 people. And I did everything from cold calling to inside sales to field sales. And then my career took a bit of a weird, unconventional left turn when I said, I need to really evolve. And I got into stand-up comedy. And I've been doing that since 2011. And in that time, I performed at clubs in Canada and the United States, and some festivals here in Canada, some smaller ones, including the kind of the more local portion of the Montreal Just for Laughs Festival. I've even been on The Daily Show when they came to Montreal to film something. God bless nepotism. It pays to know people. But I had the line. I'm not that talented, guys. I just know people. But I had the line, it's just waffles, when Jason Jones came to Montreal to film a bit on the massive maple syrup heist that happened here in 2012 or something like that. So with that said, that's a little bit about my background. I kind of ran through this. I'd love to hear your reactions. I do request no heckling. I know it's tempting. There's alcohol. Everyone wants to be funnier than a comedian, but I'm trying to actually bestow mad wisdom upon you guys. And questions, if you need some clarification on something, perhaps message Scott, maybe not, or just chime in, that's fine. Just about clarification questions, but the bigger questions and opinion, and hey, what's your opinion on political correctness and stand-up comedy? Let's leave that to the end when I'm finished my beer, or my Canadian tequila, as I like to call it. I also like to cover what comedy writing for sales pros is not, because there is so much misunderstanding about what I do. And you know whose fault that is? Nobody but my own. And it's a challenge to educate people on why this is really valuable. And I've struggled with, and this is me being vulnerable, guys, just branding a little bit and educating people on why the joke writing process will help you better understand your prospects, even if you can't figure out how to make them laugh. So what is comedy writing for sales pros not? You guys have heard of Challenger. You guys have heard of Spin. You guys have heard of Sandler. I'm not any of those, but God, do I wish I had Sandler's Netflix money. Guys, this is not classical sales training, right? This is not any kind of methodology. I did screw up that last joke. I apologize. It usually hits way harder than that. But what I've been told is that what I do complements any classic sales training methodology. It's all a way to help you sort of understand your prospects better and say things in a more memorable fashion. It doesn't really matter what methodology you subscribe to. People also say to me, oh my God, you offer comedy writing for sales pros. That is awesome. I love improv. And I'm like, okay, that's like kind of coming into the office in the morning and saying, oh my God, do I need caffeine? And someone hands you a Red Bull. Like, that's not what that person was implying. To be clear, improv is super cool in that it teaches sales pros how to listen and react in the moment. It is a series of unscripted moments that are unrepeatable. So improv is about creating unrepeatable moments. But if you ever watch stand-up comedy, and it looks like they're making it up because they're so natural, but it's all scripted. It's all been tested, scripted, tested, iterated, and they continue to keep honing and refining their messaging. And I'm a firm believer that if you know everything there is to know about your prospect and the reasons that your company is in business, including all the problems you solve, you will never, ever need to improv. I think, again, it teaches listening skills. I don't believe in that sales reps should really need to improv, because the only time you should need to improv is if you don't know your playbook and really what it is you're trying to communicate. It's also not an opportunity to be edgy or offensive. I'm going to cover that. It's also not a magic bullet to make you hilarious. Really what I'm trying to help sales pros do is have an icebreaker or two that they can use repeatedly on prospects to connect with them and demonstrate insight and knowledge. But I do not make you funny. I do not make you quick in the moment. And I'm going to talk about that in a bit as well. And lastly, I just want to make sure you guys are really clear that comedy writing for sales pros is not a class in PowerPoint design. Like, I know my strengths and I certainly know my weaknesses. And I just want to put that one out there that I have no clue. I don't even know how to use Fiverr to get someone to make this thing look pretty. So let's not give me too much credit here. You guys recognize this person?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who is it?
Me.
It looks like John Stern, but with
Your
hair.
prospect.
I heard your prospect. Yes, maybe it does look like John Stern, super guy. But at the end of the day, this is everybody we're calling, emailing, or connecting with on LinkedIn, or people that we're even demoing to. Look at this poor guy. He's got 5 devices in his face. All of them have data coming in through things like email, Slack, text, phone calls. There's all kinds of notifications going off, both visually and audially. Is that a word? Let's just pretend it is. You guys know what I mean. And as a result, I think you guys can relate. Our attention spans have been rewired. There's so much distraction going on. The average person gets 120 emails a day. Think about it. The average human attention span is now like 8 seconds, and that is less than the attention span of a goldfish. And unfortunately, guys, the worst news I have for you is that goldfish don't have budget. You cannot sell to them. So you gotta call this person, this imaginary prospect. So there's distraction. Also, our prospects, quite frankly, even before this pandemic, were more stressed than ever. I mean, the demands of every corporate American job, we all know how hard it is and the demands placed on us. And that causes all kinds of trauma on our brains and our bodies. And I think the other thing that everyone needs to understand is that 2/3, according to a Gallup study, of Americans over the age of 35, except for everybody on this call, completely disengaged from their jobs. It's a process of mailing it in and doing the bare minimum to pay the bills, to make sure the kids are clothed and schooled, fed, and the mortgage is paid. And so we as salespeople, we got to combat these 3 gigantic challenges. And so I'm a firm believer that humor can help you guys overcome all of these in one fell swoop. So there I am at Montreal's Comedy Nest. I'm smiling, I'm having a good time, which isn't always the case with stand-up comedy. Sometimes it's the worst endeavor anyone could ever pursue. It doesn't pay well. It has some terrible working conditions, and you have to deal with other comedians, which is a fate I would wish upon none of you guys. Some are great, terrible people, but I'm going to reserve judgment on them for another time. But when I come out on stage and I'm having a good time, I will tell them that Ross and Monica's dad joke. I don't tell them sales jokes because none of them get it. But I try to be as relatable, as memorable as possible, as quick as I can. And when I come out on stage, I have like 15 to 20 seconds to make them laugh, to get them on board with me, and to get them to like me. And I need to be relatable. And like I said, I need to be memorable so that they're going to give me more of their attention. If I don't make them laugh in that first 15 to 20 seconds, their faces do light up, but not because of laughter. It's because they're on their phones. Like we comedians know from the stage when you guys are just not caring about us. We could see that blue light in your faces because you have some Instagram recipe or something like that to check. So just bear that in mind next time you're able to go to a comedy show when this pandemic ends. So everyone's favorite comedian. This guy makes you laugh constantly every time your manager asks you to use his software, right?
That was good. Winner.
Nice. I appreciate the running Yelp reviews on my jokes. This is a new one. But think about it, guys. Whether it's Benioff or whether it's Benioff at Dreamforce or whether it's some other keynote speaker from the industry that you've seen at a conference, they're probably telling a joke at some point during their presentation. And think about it. Everybody in that room is a Salesforce customer or prospect. And his job is to connect with them, as many of them at once, to get that big laugh. So he can be self-deprecating and make a joke about some failed aspect of Salesforce or something that everyone loves about it, or a problem that they struggled with before they got on board with any kind of CRM. And so if you guys look at your prospects, you need to pretend, if you ever want to kind of adopt some of the things I'm saying, that your prospects are all in a room. You might want to write a joke that will make a whole room of people laugh. The only thing is, though, they're not. They're reading your joke or hearing your joke one at a time over email, cold calls, LinkedIn. But imagine you got them all in the room. Would they all laugh at this one joke that you're going to tell each one of them repeatedly? So what does the right joke do? And just to be clear, there's two kinds of jokes. There's jokes that are frivolous and throwaway and that might make them like you and might break the ice, but doesn't really advance the conversation with respect to what you're trying to get them to engage you about. And then there's jokes that really do exactly that. And we're going to focus on that latter group. Jokes that are hyper relatable to who your specific micro audience is. I call your prospects a micro audience. So if you can really relate to your prospect about a business challenge that you just so happen to solve for them, or the impact of not solving that problem, I'm going to walk through some other premises. It's going to help those of you who are, let's say, on the sales development side, start that conversation. It's going to help you really relate, connect, and engage within that first 20 seconds of them dealing with you. If you're an AE and you're having longer conversations, of course, this does apply to SDRs as well. It'll enable you to have better ones. So I hate this word, but I've been using it since before the pandemic. We've got to humanize not just our prospects, but we don't also need to humanize us, but we also need to humanize our prospects. Hey, just round of applause if you are part of a sales org that makes you spit out like 300 emails a day or 100 emails a day, whatever, like 100 dials. Wow, you guys have really unaggressive sales targets is really what I'm learning. Wrong audience. All right. Boy, did I screw up that message. I think we all know that the prospects have been dehumanized just because, I don't know, the demands on every sales leader to hit certain revenue targets is pretty high. Scott, you don't know anything about that, do you?
He's on
Scott,
mute.
Tequila, I can't
He
see.
stepped away for a
I
second.
had another tequila.
He knows.
That's fine.
I know. And all of you know me because literally I just got another tequila. So I apologize.
Whether you're in sales or comedy or presenting on sales and comedy, something that you really need is timing. And unfortunately, because I turned the view of all you guys off, I have none. So with that said, we got to humanize our rep and our prospect. a great joke can offer something for your prospect to consider. And I'm going to give you guys some examples of that. Jokes can boil down really complicated concepts. How many of you people, I saw some guys LinkedIn tagline yesterday, and it's like, we optimize and enhance. I forget what the rest of it said. And I'm just like, oh my God, like I have no clue what you do.
So did everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And you're all selling something that's AI driven and then enhances, and it's all part of a platform, right? Humans don't know what any of that means. And I know someone in marketing thinks it's brilliant. And maybe you got the odd prospect set that buys into that, but maybe you guys sell to nerds. And if you do, that's great. But a lot of regular people, they don't understand the buzzwordiness of it all. And a good joke can help boil down your value. And at the same time, it can paint a really vivid picture to educate your prospects on maybe, like, again, how does that pain impact the business? How does it help you solve that problem? So Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. You know, we're in this era of quote unquote digital selling. I don't really know what that means still, but hey, digital, great. When we were back in the analog days, people used to knock on doors, go door-to-door sales, and personality helped them get in the door. And I think that's been forgotten. So, you know, people forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And we need to remember that at the end of the day, the key word there is people. People want to be treated like people. They don't want to be spammed to death. They don't want to be railroaded into a cold call. People also want to be understood. They, you know, prospects want to know that you understand them. And, you know, prospects also are looking for someone to help them, you know, like I said, solve their problem. And they want to feel glad that you decided, they want to feel glad they have decided to give you some time. So whether it's taking your cold call, whether it's replying to your email, or whether it's giving you that meeting, they want to feel good about the time that you have asked them for. So I get this a lot. John, I don't believe. I get this from like there's two profiles. I get this from, in every company, one of the sales enablement leader or the sales leader tells me this. They're like, I don't believe you can teach people to be funny. It's not a thing you can teach. I don't believe this. And then just they just rip, you know, pummel me to death with their jowls flapping back and forth in the wind in their outrage. In fact, I believe that I can make reps just a little bit funnier. So there is something.
Don't you sort of just want to tell those people, no, I can't make you funny, but your team.
Correct. Thank you very much. So I do believe that no, you cannot teach people to be quote unquote naturally hilarious. That is a very small group of people, as evidenced by that right tail in the bell curve. And this, by the way, this bell curve represents humanity. And so a small percentage of humanity are naturally hilarious, right? They are quick in the moment. They always have the right thing to say. They're the so-called life of the party. And that's not taught. That comes through kind of this combination of intelligence, life experience, you know, just their understanding of the world around them. And yeah, I can't teach that. That is not a thing I teach. But that's a very small percentage of humanity, like I said. However, if we look at the vast majority of humanity, well, I'll toss this question out there. I need to hear some applause because I can't see you right now. Round of applause if you've ever laughed at a joke, told a joke off the top of your head, or repeated a joke that you saw from at a stand-up comedian, a stand-up comedy show, in a movie, on Saturday Night Live, that you heard from a friend. Round of applause if you've ever told a joke of any kind or laughed at a joke.
Hey. Of course.
Yeah, so that's most people. Because most of you, I think, have a sense of humor. The rest of you may or may not be sociopaths, but I don't want to label you that way this soon into our relationship. That'd be a bad move on my part. So I do believe that most people can be trained to deliver one joke repeatedly. You know, go up to everybody at a cocktail party and tell them the same damn joke. I believe that sales reps can tell the same damn joke to every one of their prospects with timing and to drive impact to help them like them and get that conversation going. However, so if we look at that tail on the left, to the right of it, that represents like 99% of humanity. This graph is not to scale, just for you stats nerds out there. But if we look at that small tail on the left, there is a small group of people that I cannot help get even the slightest bit funnier, and these are people who sell. You know, and I don't want to really kind of like give these people a hard time, because there are some people who, for whatever reason, they don't have that ability to laugh at jokes. Maybe it's their circumstances in life. It could be their current situation. So I don't want to give them a hard time. However, some of those people have another name. I call those procurement people. All right.
There's so much pain. The laughter has to cut through the pain there on that one, John.
That's a little uncle, guys. The worst part of every deal was just getting to that procurement person, because then the real work began. Okay.
Yep.
So, look, I always say that sales is stand-up comedy without the 2-drink minimum, unless you bomb your quarter. And stand-up comedy is sales, but with a much crappier comp plan. There are so many similarities between the two. And we can talk about what you can learn from the great stand-up comedians on Netflix. But I'd rather talk about the truly terrible, quote-unquote, comedians I see in open mics who never advance beyond open mics. The career progression in comedy is open mic, bar shows, you get more than like 3 or 4 minutes, and then hopefully clubs and doing road gigs. But there's some people who never, ever advance beyond that open mic stage. And I learned a lot about selling from watching them. So first thing is, they always make it about themselves. There's one guy in Montreal, he will ask the crowd, hey, you guys like pro wrestling? And nobody applauds. Then he goes on and tells them 4 minutes of pro wrestling jokes. Then he goes, hey, do you guys like Jurassic Park? That's my favorite movie. And they don't clap. He then goes on to tell 5 minutes of pro wrestling jokes. I mean, he's more than an open micer, but I don't know why. Let's just say that. And I've never seen this guy get big laughs. And he just makes it about himself constantly. And as sales pros, we need to make it all about our prospects. And so he wasn't listening to the fact that the crowd said no, and he wasn't relatable in any way. And like, let's face it, guys, we sell products that we've never used to people whose jobs we've never had in industries we've never worked. I would say that's like 90% true. Maybe we use some SaaS on a day-to-day basis that we sell, and we go, oh, this is cool, I can talk about this. But odds are, you were in that little category I just described. So we have to find ways to relate to our prospects in ways that make them go, oh man, this person really gets me.
John, do you mind saying that line one more time?
Yep.
We sell products that we
Yep.
never use to people in jobs we never have, or something like that. That was a
Yep.
great line.
Most of us sell products we've never used to people whose jobs we've never had in industries we've never worked.
I love that. That's great.
And so it's really hard to be relatable. Like, I'd call up a CFO when I was at Oracle and say, oh, are you doing your budget and spreadsheet still? And he'd go, yeah. And I'd go, I don't know anything else to ask. Like, I've never managed a budget. I've never done one in a spreadsheet. I do have this little sales playbook in front of me, which tells me which questions to ask, but I don't really know what the hell I'm talking about. And thank God for my sales consultant. Big ups to your sales consultants, guys, to your sales engineers. But building rapport is a challenge. And if we can demonstrate that we understand them, that's going to take us such a long way. But bad comedians fail to do that. They also ramble a lot. Good jokes are short and they're punchy. And I'm sure you guys have all done the whole, hey, can I get 27 seconds of your time if you're in cold calling? And you talk for a minute and a half and the customer just cuts you off. Because you're just going on and on. And I go watch the bad comedians. They take forever to get to the part that's funny. And by the time they do, like I said, everyone's faces are lit up, but not because they're having a good time. It's because they're on their phones. They got bored. And there's this confidence factor. There's a comfort factor. We have this expression in comedy, find your voice. That takes like 8 to 10 years of being on stage every night. It's hard to do. After doing comedy for like 8, 9 years, 3 times a week, I'm way more comfortable than I ever was. And I watch the new people and they're just terrified. And sales reps can't come off as terrified or uncomfortable at any point. And this is a big one. The worst sales reps don't have a plan and they don't have goals. And same with comedians. So if you're just going out there and getting up on stage every week and you're just like doing it for the hell of it, odds are you're never going to advance. When I started, I knew I needed to build 5 minutes so that I can showcase to get on better shows. And once I showcased, I said, I want to write another 5 minutes so I can do the longer spot. And if you look at guys who have Netflix specials, they're trying to create 60 minutes a year so they could get a new special on Netflix and stay relevant. Comedy's changed so much. So bad comedians never have a plan. They don't really seem to know why they're doing this or where they're going with it all. They don't practice, and it shows. They just show up at the open mic, and they're just like, you can tell, trying something for the first time. They don't have a handle on it, and that means they're not working hard. Like, I have no memory, guys. I have the memory of an elephant, like a dead one. And so I would spend a lot of time in, like, parks just practicing my lines because I knew I'd forget them. And a lot of people would just stare at me like, oh, my God, why is that well-dressed homeless person talking to themselves? And I was willing to subject myself to that kind of, silent emotional abuse. But I think if you don't practice and you don't know your script and you don't understand your prospects and you don't work at this, you won't succeed. And a lot of bad stand-up comedians never learn from their failure. They just keep going out there and trying the same jokes over and over that don't work. And they have thin skin. They don't have resilience. And they fail and they walk away from it. And sales isn't for everybody. Stand-up's not for everybody. But if we can really get used to the taste of a good shit sandwich, we will succeed in whatever we put our minds to. Sorry for that gross analogy. So I talked about hitting that 60-minute quota for comedians. It's very much a funnel approach, writing good jokes. And the same if you are a sales pro. You need to figure out, what will my prospects laugh at? What can I connect with them on? A good comedian then workshops their ideas. We have a limited amount of stage time. If someone says to me, hey, John, come to a show on Wednesday, they'll give me 7 minutes, 10 minutes. I have to use my time wisely. And that's another little parallel. I have to have a plan before I go on stage. If someone's paying me to make people laugh, it's probably not a good idea to try 10 minutes of untested jokes, but rather know where I'm starting, know where I'm going, maybe slide one in the middle, a new one. But we sort of need to workshop our ideas depending on how much stage time we get. We got to choose which ones we're going to work on. We got to invest time in the ones that are getting laughs. I call those qualified opportunities. And then if a joke is constantly getting laughs for me, I call that like a closed deal. And that goes into my main set of jokes. And so, you guys, if you're going to try and make your prospects laugh, you need to choose 1 or 2 that are premises that are ultimately going to connect with them. Find the right joke that'll work and try and make them laugh just with 1 joke on every call. Something I'm going to do for you guys is we're going to write a joke together, but I kind of want to talk to you guys about some other parallels first. I think the biggest challenge that most, I talked about that whole thing that Scott loved, and I hope he'll quote me on LinkedIn tomorrow. We need to understand our prospects. We need to know our audience. And, I don't know what percentage of sales reps really know their ICP inside and out. But we need to figure out, what do they need to hear from us so that, they can say, hey, that interests me. I want to talk to you a little bit more. So I call your prospects your micro audience. And the question is, do you know them? Do you know everything about them? So whether you're selling to whatever department or line of business, whether it's finance, IS, HR, whatever, do you understand the difference between what a C-level is concerned about and what a manager level is concerned about? And obviously we have those VP folks in the middle. There's strategic concerns, which a C-level is concerned about, share price, profitability, maybe a merger and acquisition strategy. And then you got your managers who care about more tactical things. What's my email open rate? How many meetings are we booking a week? These are more tactical things. The vice president cares about those kind of things, but ultimately, he's got to marry up the C-level strategic concerns with those tactical concerns that his reports focus on. So to answer these questions, we as salespeople know what's important to our target persona. How are they measured? What's keeping them up at night? What's impacting them? Is it a problem that I solve impacting them? And how? What do they fear? What do they love? What do they need to succeed? We need to understand our audience cold as salespeople. And as a comedian, I mean, I need to do that. I can't walk into a room full of senior citizens and tell them jokes about Snapchat or Tinder. It doesn't work.
Ooh.
I wish that was funny. I've watched too many comedians. I wish that was like just a joke, because I've watched so many comedians tell Tinder jokes to the wrong audience. So with that said,
Somebody felt the pain. Somebody felt the pain of that one.
yeah, exactly. Someone's told a bunch of Snapchat jokes to their clients.
Not appropriate?
Whatever. I'm not here to. I am here to tell you what is appropriate and not, for you to then decide if you agree with it. So let's talk about something I call business empathy. Buzzword of the pandemic, but I've been using this for 3 years. So I want to talk about two expressions. I have a blog post on this. The definition of insanity is repeating your. Hold on, guys. There's a knock on my door, and I don't know who the hell it is. Hold on.
We're here if you need help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not a problem. I had the same thing last time I talked to John.
The strange thing is, he answers the door. I would never answer my door if I don't know who it is.
I'm expecting like 19 deliveries, guys. So it's actually a friend who just showed up.
It's probably his food.
It's Canadian.
No, although
Canada.
the friend does have food. He has chocolate vodka from the kosher bakery around the corner. You guys, if we ever open up our borders to you again, that needs to be your first destination.
Is it gonna happen?
It's that good.
Oh,
I might even show you some if you're lucky. So let's get back to things. That was just ridiculous. I've never had an interruption like that. Okay, but there's deliciousness at my door. I had to answer. So there's two expressions I want to talk about. Number one is the definition of insanity is repeating yourself over and over, never changing anything and expecting different results. But there's another expression I want to talk about, which is comedy equals tragedy plus time. So, 9/11, the Holocaust, this pandemic. I promise you, I don't believe in making jokes about this pandemic, but in 20 years' time, there will be no shortage of pandemic humor going around. Why? Because the wounds will have healed. People were telling 9/11 jokes within like 5 years of the event. The Holocaust took a little longer, probably to the 60s, before people started kind of cracking wise, the Holocaust. But in business, let's talk about the business world. To me, comedy is tragedy that repeats itself. And so I remember when I was an SDR at Oracle, and I would call up a director of procurement, and I would kind of just say, like, a lot of procurement executives struggle with, getting things procured in less than 30 days. I don't know. I'm really bad at my procurement knowledge these days. I would say, is this a challenge for you? And they'd go, oh my God, I've been telling the boss for the last 7 years that we need to fix our procurement system. We need to streamline it. And all of a sudden I became his therapist, and I had triggered him because I had touched on something that is driving him nuts and preventing him from doing his job. And he would just start, verbal vomit of all his challenges. And, maybe you can help us, Oracle. And I would just be documenting everything so that I can better qualify this deal and understand if it's a good opportunity for us. So comedy is tragedy that repeats itself. And if you can tell a joke that highlights that tragedy, you can get them to say that's funny because it's true. If you can tell a joke about the problem you solve for your prospects and it's funny and it's real, you're going to get them to open up. You can also get them to say, I never looked at it that way. So how do you know what your prospect's tragedy is? You guys are all in, I would guess, a lot of businesses that are a little more niche than an Oracle that solves like 9 gazillion IT problems. But just ask yourself, what problem do I solve for my prospects? I help your ICP, your target persona, who struggles with what? But that's really the thrust of it, right? And it's so simple but whenever I ask young sales pros, what problem do you solve? They'll just say, well, we're an AI-driven engagement platform. I'm like, you didn't answer the question. And so, you know, you guys are a smart bunch. You're paying Scott for his wisdom, his knowledge. And I'm not joking about that, but you're here because you want to learn. I'm willing to bet most of you guys know this, but a lot of sales pros don't. But if you could just kind of carve out that problem, that pain point, that's the great premise for a joke. So when we're cold calling, whether we're connecting on LinkedIn or if we are sending cold email, we want to open strong. We have like 12 seconds to get our prospect's attention. Round of applause. Who's ever said the whole, hey, can I have 27 seconds of your time?
Nope.
Never.
Good.
Not once.
God's trained you well. Because when you ask them for 27 seconds of their time, you're wasting part of that 12 seconds that I believe you have with your prospect. You're burning into that.
Amen.
So if you can open really strong, whether it's again on cold outreach or whether it's on a demo of some kind, discovery call, and you can open strong with humor that showcases insights. You're going to demonstrate credibility. If you can make them laugh, and even if you can't make them laugh, it doesn't matter. You're still demonstrating your credibility. You're being different from every other rep that's calling on them. If they laugh, they're going to like you. And once they see that you're credible and they like you, they're going to trust you. And that is currency in sales, right? We're going to get their attention. We're going to cut that tension because God, I know, and I've done no shortage of cold calls in my life. The moment they pick up the phone, I hear them go, there's like a tension that happens on my end. And, you know, the moment I start talking to them, they're tense because the first thing they want to, you know, figure out is how do I get this person off the phone? But if we can make them laugh, we break that ice, we cut that tension. And once I do make them laugh, my confidence, just like while they're laughing, I'm processing where I want to go next. So when I tell that Ross and Monica's dad joke on stage and the audience is laughing, I'm literally take a step forward towards them and I'm able to kind of like puff my chest out, my shoulders back, and I'm thinking about what am I saying to them next? It gives me that minute to compose myself. It's not a minute, it's like 3 seconds, but that's a long time. And once I've done all this, I have that engagement that I'm looking for. So if you tell the right joke about a problem you solve for your prospects and they laugh, you know, I call the jokes that come out of what I do as like the cherry on top of the iceberg. This is just an iceberg, unfortunately. There is no chocolate sauce, nuts, or ice cream in this graphic. But the right joke will display all these qualities. And even if you don't write a joke, all of these things underneath the waterline are going to help you create something that may or may not make them laugh. But you need all that bottom stuff to be a great sales rep, in my personal opinion. So we can write jokes about anything. You can write jokes about pain, maybe a threat that's about to affect their industry, you know, like, I don't know, a global pandemic. You know, maybe now is not the time to tell that joke. You can write a joke about how they're going to be impacted by either the pain or the threat. Maybe what makes you different. Maybe you're a commodity and you're in a very crowded space. You can make a joke about how you solve the problem because, again, there's a lot of new technology out there that is a little esoteric and maybe harder to understand through a marketing catchphrase or quick opener. You could paint a picture about their desired future state. So if they want to go public or they want to be the industry leader, you can write a joke about that. And you can handle sales objections. And I don't mean just the standard ones like price or now's not a good time or we have no budget, but maybe there's some really standard competitive objections that you hear. We're going to go with those guys, or we're looking at those guys because they have this feature or function. And maybe you know the truth behind that feature or function. You can combat it through humor. And when I was selling Oracle professional services, we get priced quite a bit. They'd say, hey, you guys are $190 an hour. Your competitor's $125 an hour. Why should we go with you? And my boss would say, and it's not hilarious, but think about it. He'd go, it's not just rate, but it's rate times time. And if you can't afford to do it right, I hope you can afford to do it wrong. And they would just, that would shunt that objection to the side. They just did not, they were like, that makes sense. I want to talk more. So we can use humor, like I said, in our cold outreach, and there's so many different channels for cold outreach today. We got the phone, we got email, we got our LinkedIn connection requests, we got our LinkedIn posts, we got our bombs, our vidyards. We're creating tweets, content, and when we're selling, up top, we can tell stories and inject humor along the way. We have transitions, so every 15 minutes or so. That, by the way, I talked about focused attention span earlier, less than 8 seconds. There's also sustained attention span, which is how long we can roughly pay attention to something. That's 18 minutes, and that's coincidentally the length of a TED Talk. So we can joke about our, sorry?
I was laughing at the irony of that's how long a TED Talk is.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They're short. We can make jokes about our admitted shortcomings, which like I did earlier with my PowerPoint skills, handling objections. So with that said, let's write a joke together, guys. You guys ready for this? Because I can't see you.
Yes.
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 Any of you who are left on this call, awesome. So this is going to be a crash course in joke writing. Before we write any kind of joke, I like to say that building a good joke is like building a house from scratch. You need to go to Home Depot. You need to buy the lumber, drywall, the circuitry, pipes, the paint, the shingles for the roof. You need to go buy everything you need so that you can assemble the joke. And so we're going to take some steps. And in your case, what pain do you solve for your prospect? But we're going to write a joke that's, you all do different things. We're going to write a joke that's relatable to all of us. So, but for your own purposes, you might want to write this down. My target persona struggles with what? So today's premise is sales reps struggle with hitting quota during a pandemic. All right, we're going to write a joke about the challenges of hitting quota during a pandemic. I can just smell the excitement, guys. If I could harness the energy on this call right now, I could light a very tiny bong. Just figured out.
Yes.
Did you say bong? B-O-N-G?
Maybe I don't want to get.
I feel like you did, and I'm here for it.
We offered up.
It's
Yeah.
Canada.
Tequila Tuesday. Let's. Oh, by the way, speaking of what follows bongs, can you guys see this?
Chocolate.
Doritos.
What is that? Amazing.
It is a heart attack on a plate, guys. I gotta lick my fingers. So look, our first step, we talked about this. If we're gonna write a great joke to make our prospects laugh, we have to know our audience. And I'm just gonna repeat what we had up earlier. We have to know everything about who our buyer is. But like I said, let's think about what do they love? What do they need? What do they fear? What are they trying to achieve? How are they measured? What's keeping them up at night? And know everything about their role, responsibilities, and if they're concerned about strategic, big picture things or more tactical, departmental things. Here's the fun stuff, and I'm going to actually take myself off of screen view. Let's talk about expression. Whoops. So the first, let me go back. Sorry about that. Great. So if you want to write a great joke, you need to express yourself around the premise of the joke, which is in this case, hitting your quota during pandemic. So I'm going to pull up, can you guys see the spreadsheet here?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yep.
We're not going to do the know your audience part because we're all sales pros. We all kind of know each other. What we're concerned about, we want to hit quota, and that's what the joke is about. So our premise is hitting quota during a pandemic. What can we say about this problem? I need you guys actually to shout it out. We're going to do a minute on each step.
We all have it.
Cost them money.
Here's a little hint. Here's a little thing, guys. Never in these jokes do we want to talk about making money or losing money, because that's just obvious. It's sort of a last resort. So how would you describe it? Are there any adjectives you can use? I will write the cost us money. Cost us money. If we don't do it. What else? What else can we say about trying to hit our quotas during a pandemic?
Quotas right now have no real frame of reference.
That's good.
That doesn't really, I'm just going to back that up. I agree with
like
you.
that.
But it doesn't really describe the challenge. Okay, so there's no frame of reference.
But we're being asked to climb Mount Everest with no equipment. It's impossible. That's what a lot of people think and feel right now.
Quotas haven't moved, despite the fact that the world has changed.
Yeah, exactly. Go turn water into wine, fuckers. That's what we get told. Water into tequila, I should say.
What else? What else we got? What else can we say about this problem? And maybe it's one word kind of descriptors and not the word frustrating.
Fired.
Tired?
Fired with an F.
Oh.
As in no more job.
Being fired, yep.
Prospects are more flooded than usual with comms.
So many people don't know how to work from home.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next step. But in short, we could go on forever. Let's go to step 3. What happens if we don't solve the problem? To us, what are the impacts, risks, or consequences of not solving the problem? To us, to our company, to our leadership, to our customers, to our family. So what happens if we don't solve the problem?
We become homeless.
We lose all of those things that
We
you
fail
just
our
listed.
family.
Company shuts down.
Yeah, you lose yourself, you lose your family, you lose the company, you lose it all.
Like a
I'm
country.
not going to get married.
You guys have harsh families.
Eating ramen.
Very
This is
unforgiving.
America.
Public school.
And I can't get married.
Yep. What else?
Well said, John.
We can't solve the problems for our clients.
Can't surf.
I don't know who said that, but that's really painful.
Anything else? What else will happen to anybody if we can't hit quota during the pandemic?
Can't pay your mortgage?
You don't have health insurance and you get sick.
Oh, that's bad. That's a rough one.
Yeah, you don't have a job?
Yeah, get fired.
Okay, I'm going to move on.
Wait on hold for unemployment.
And just as a heads up, guys,
Visa.
just to be clear, there is a very slim chance we're going to write a great joke here. I'm just trying to show you guys the process, what goes into writing a good joke.
I have faith in you.
You got to spend way more than like a minute on each step. What I do is I teach some very simple joke formulas, which I'm going to share with you in a bit. Scott, just as a heads up, how much time do I have?
I mean, as much as you need, really.
Good. That was the right answer. So grab your sleeping bags, maybe some, tea to settle in. But big thing you need to do is then identify what I call impactful words. You guys remember like grade 4 English, right? 4th grade English. Adjectives. So those are words that describe things. So some classic business adjectives. It's complex. It's disorganized. It's agile. It's robust. It's very meaningful. So do you guys see any adjectives that we've used so far in all this stuff? It could be a variation of a word too.
Complex. I mean, it's there a few times.
Which one?
Working from home is hard. That's complex.
No. I'm just giving you those adjectives as an example of adjectives in general. What I'm asking you to do now is look at what we've said or come up with something new that describes the problem.
Gary.
Gary, I like it. I mean, I don't like it, but you know. Why can't I type that? Why is that? Oh, weird. Okay.
Number lock. There you go.
Is anxious an adjective?
Yep.
We all failed fourth grade.
Yeah, we don't know adjectives at this point.
Birdies.
Cannot. We've said can't a lot. That can be an adjective as well. The
Which one?
Impossible.
cannot.
Priorities.
Unsettling.
Unsettling. That's a good adjective. Impossible is a good one too. All right, next step. Here's one of these adjectives. Let's just say anxious. Who, what, or where, could be a place too, is anxious. Make a list. This is like where the fun creativity comes in.
Dentist office.
No. Who?
Call center.
Well, the where is good. Maybe a child at a dentist's
A blank
office.
in church. Yeah.
A witch in church?
I don't know. Scott Lees can say it.
School. School. What about school? Teachers in school.
Teachers. Yep.
Parents.
Dating.
People on a date.
Yeah, first date.
Yep. On a first date, like that.
Does that even happen right now? That's a whole nother.
Boss on a pipeline.
I'll talk about that.
Oh yeah.
Wanted a captain.
Who else is anxious?
The rep on a pipeline call.
Say that again.
Rep on a pipeline call.
That's actually, I like that, and I'll tell you why. Because you're bringing in, well, I mean, it's kind of tied to the premise if you wanted the truth, but
people aren't going to be as familiar, right?
yeah, it's definitely relatable to everybody on the call. So, and how about scary?
Can I say Trump in tax court?
No. It's a good joke. It's going to be a good joke, but I would not encourage you to tell that to your prospect. And we're going to come to those rules. Well, how about things that are impossible? What else is possible?
Time travel.
Yep. Everything's possible?
A unicorn.
Optimistic.
Right
group.
now, I think anything could be possible.
World peace.
Sanity from our president currently.
Well played. Well played.
You got a few. In the interest of time, there's all. Oh, sorry. These are verbs. Damn it! I was supposed to go through verbs with you. Just put that there. How about verbs, guys? Are there any? Do you see any good verbs in here? Verbs are action words. So climbing. We have climbing.
Spreading.
Dialing.
Climbing, hitting,
Firing.
flooding,
Achieving.
firing.
Firing is that's a
Working.
bad verb. Yeah.
Balancing.
Thinking.
Advancing.
Did I see her dance?
Flooding.
What was that?
Flooding.
Flooding.
No, flooding. Flooding, yep.
And I'm just going to put shut down because it's kind of a verb. So pick one of these. So the idea is we would make a list of people, places, or things who climb, who fire, who work, who pay, who flood, who shut down. So in the interest of time, I'm going to skip this just because I think I don't want to go on forever because we could. A step I like to take is, let me just go back to my deck. A step I'm a big fan of taking is kind of figuring out like what words or expressions have we already said, but can be said a completely different way, using different expressions, words, new little cliches. In short, the reason why we do this is because sometimes the more technical your language is, the more buzzwordy it is, the less chance you have of using it in a joke. You want to simplify everything and make things very clear through simple language. And, you know, do you guys remember the thesaurus?
They're too young, John.
Yeah.
A
little bit, yes.
Sorry, I was, you know, educated on public funds here in Canada. So we use thesauruses. And, oh, that cut deep, I know. So, in short, a thesaurus, you can use it online to look up synonyms and different meanings of different words to find new ways to say things. So, normally that's a step I have sales reps take is like, if you said, if you had a sentence about the problem, rephrase the problem, say it in a completely new, different way. How about those impacts of not solving the problem? That was something, by the way, yeah, like we could become homeless. You know, the bank could foreclose. Like, that's a good way to say it. We lose everything. We go broke. Companies shut down. They also go broke. So if we can rephrase as many words and phrasings and expressions as we already have, we widen the palette of paints that we can use to ultimately paint that picture that we're looking for. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. The last step in joke writing, the thing that I like to teach, is finding the double meanings. So let me ask, if I were to say to you guys, hey man, I love that scale, what would you guys think I'm talking about?
Scaling a company.
Yeah. But if I said I love that scale, what would you think I meant?
How I weigh myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Or
that
a
is
compensation
one.
plan.
What was the second thing I heard?
Or a compensation plan.
Oh, okay. I hadn't thought about that. Yep. And there's a third one, which is if I say I love that scale, that's a really.
How you weigh yourself?
What's that?
How you weigh yourself?
Yes. No. Someone already said that, and yes, that is for sure. But it's also a couple of other things. A scale is a sequence of musical notes, and a scale is something that a lizard or a fish has.
Yeah.
So what I tell everyone to do is look through all the expression that we've just done, and we've gone through a very condensed version of it. Do you guys see any words or phrases that could mean more than one thing? I don't know if there are any here, to be quite honest. We've gone pretty specific.
We have failed you.
No, you haven't. It's fine. Because I'm going to show you different joke formulas that allow you to use what you have.
Maybe frame of reference could be used. Frame could be used different ways or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. See, that is a double.
You have a lot of ambiguity. Like when you say we all have to do it, that's fairly ambiguous, right?
Sorry, what is the ambiguity you're referring to?
In the phrase, we all have to do it. We, all, and it could have different meanings for different people.
Yeah, that makes, you're right. You're absolutely right. That's good. As a bonus, something I like to do is like help the people I'm working with find some other problems in their ICP's world. So, you know, salespeople also struggle with like updating CRM, developing pipeline alone. Like these are all salesperson problems. So I'd have us like document a bunch. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how jokes work, because I don't want to keep you here all night, even though I have like 17 more Canadian tequilas in my fridge. I could hang out all night. So now is the time where we put it together. I've built my business on one joke, and it's based on the fact that I like to cold call. Well, I don't like to, I just do it. It's okay here and there, but whatever. So my phone call, let's say I want to write a joke about my cold call. I set out to describe my cold call. So it's annoying. It's life-changing for the person who answers. It's highly informative. It's cold. And then I was like, oh man, what else is cold? And guys, like I said, Canadian tequila is my favorite cold beverage. Oh, well, there we go, craft beer. So craft beers are cold. What else can we say about craft beer? It's gassy, it's hoppy, it's intoxicating, it's refreshing, it's unique. My phone call is so much value. My beer is cold, and it's also enjoyed responsibly. So I looked at the Venn diagram, the intersection in the green. What words and phrases can be used to describe my phone call to my prospect and a craft beer? And the joke I came up with is, this call is like a craft beer because it's unique, refreshing, and ice cold. And I've used that in cold calls, cold emails, and you guys are laughing. I'm glad you like it. But what makes this a beautiful joke for me and less so for you? And you guys can use it if you want, but it advances my own cause. It demonstrates my credibility because I made them laugh, and I acknowledge the pain that I'm calling you and you don't want this call right now. And I made you laugh. So when they laugh, I'm like, I'm glad you laughed because I help your sales reps highlight pains that you solve for your prospects and make them laugh to start these kind of conversations like we're having now. I'm going to whiz through this, no pun intended, because I've had a couple beers. But what makes stuff funny? Surprise. If you can catch your prospect off guard and lead them down a path with something relevant and credible to them, and then take a left turn in the punchline, you're going to get them to laugh and to open up. And of course, like we've talked about, the joke needs to be relatable. There's one comedian, I can't mention his name because he's in all kinds of trouble, but he got to be the biggest comedian on the planet because he was really authentic. And even if we couldn't relate to what he was saying, we were like, we knew who this person was. They were telling us these truths about themselves that weren't relatable. They were a little surprising, but we bought into them. And that comedian is banned from most comedy, everything today, but they're still out there actually. So maybe you know what I'm talking about. There's all kinds of puns I could use to describe them, but I need to move on. Monty Python, very absurd. I don't really teach absurd. That's hard to do unto itself, but surprising, relatable, and authentic will make your prospects laugh. We also don't know what's going to make them laugh. We also don't know if they're going to laugh. But if we can be credible in the jokes that we're telling, in that the subject matter seems real and relatable to them, they might not laugh, but it's okay if you don't make them laugh because you're going to be all those other things. There are rules to telling jokes to your prospects. We never, and this is something that like I just had to deal with this on a call with like a sales enablement team of like a dozen the other day. Within 10 minutes, we teach our prospects to not make we teach our reps to not make our prospects laugh because they could offend a prospect. I'm like, what do you think is going, like, what do you think they're going to say? But I was a little bit shocked about that because this is a human to human job and we need to be likable. But of course, in case we hadn't figured it out, we don't want to make jokes about someone's religion or any religion, anyone's culture, their gender, their sexual orientation. We don't want to punch down on marginalized groups in society. So like the disabled, physically or mentally disabled people, they're disadvantaged. You're not a hero if you make fun of them. It's good to be politically correct when you're trying to make your prospects laugh. We're going to move right along. We're not even going to mention that word. But obviously politics are hyper taboo because you just don't know what your prospect believes in. And if you make a joke about that Trump in bankruptcy court, they might just hang up on you. Like, I like the joke, full disclosure, but you don't want to tell that to a prospect because that can get you in trouble. Sometimes we work with people on our team. Like a sales consultant, or sometimes your prospect, your ICP, is actually your champion and they're bringing in the decision maker. You never want to out your prospect. If they told you something personal, don't ever make fun of them to get a laugh at their expense because that breaks that bond of trust. If everyone loves Tequila Tuesdays, maybe don't make fun of tequila. I usually call it Taco Tuesdays actually. But, and of course, if you need to explain the joke, I'm going to move on. I don't need to get into that. So I'm coming to the tail end of everything. Jokes are made up of premises, which is the topic that we're making a joke about. And that includes a setup. And the setup is the thing that the prospect hears in that first 6 seconds that creates some expectations on really what they're talking about. And it's based on the words and phrases we used or the context. And the punchline comes along and subverts those expectations. It takes that left turn that the listener didn't expect. And I have some good examples, and it really surprises us. I'm not going to tell all the jokes, but I have recruited this cat who was super smart, as evidenced by his round glasses and bow tie.
No doubt.
And the formulas behind him on the board, see everything. So I've recruited him to teach us about common joke formulas. And he says that once I told a chemistry joke, there was no reaction. There was just now, but unfortunately for the people who laugh, I don't teach cheesy puns, although I sort of do, and I don't even realize it. I'm going to teach you guys a couple of quick formulas, and then we'll try and put together the joke quickly, and we'll wrap it up. Easiest kind of joke is a superlative, where you're comparing one thing to another, and the joke hinges on one word. So I did a workshop for Georgia Pacific in Atlanta. They sell things like Dixie cups, toilet paper, Brawny or Bounty or some other B word paper towel. I don't remember which one. And their reps are selling to distributors. So the joke that they wrote is the only thing longer than our new paper towel roll is dinner with your in-laws. So they're highlighting a benefit here. I mean, they're in a commodity-based business, so they're not highlighting the pain as much. I actually tossed this out on LinkedIn. This call, and this you guys can use this if you want, this call is colder than trade show coffee. All right.
Which we don't get to have anymore.
Well, yes. And nobody laughed, and that's okay, because jokes are a lot like rich kids. They don't all work. So just thought I'd put that out there. The next formula for jokes is the rule of threes. Comedy works in threes quite often. And so what happens is you deliver your setup, and the setup will be backed up by a list of 3 things or attributes. The first 2 are going to conform to the expectations that the setup plants in your mind, but the third takes a little twist, deviates. So let's look at one that's in a bit of an analogy form. I helped a company called FleetCor. They are a vendor of prepaid fuel cards. They sell these fuel cards to companies who have fleets, and they don't have credit. The company doesn't have credit, so the drivers need to pay for gas, and they sell them these, and they can't give them a credit card for a variety of reasons, including the fact they don't have credit. So their audience is small business owners without credit. The joke I helped them write was being a police officer with no credit is like trying to bribe a police officer who cashes you speeding. It's risky. You shouldn't say you're doing it, and you can only pay with cash.
Thank you.
That silence is deafening. But at the same time, if you were to start off a cold call with that, you would take your prospect off guard. They might appreciate it. You've said relevant things to them. If they don't laugh, it's fine. I don't care. Another one is Citrix is a client of mine. I did their sales kickoff or their mid-year sales kickoff a year ago. And I don't know, some security solution. We were trying to write a joke about a problem that that solution solves. Their audience is a vice president of IT. So the joke we wrote was, I wrote this. Screw that. I wrote this joke. Your employees often read sensitive work data on their phones in public. You don't want your company's data being viewed on the bus, at a cafe, or one stall over. A little bit dated because we're all working from home unless you work in a place that has stalls, or you live in your bathroom at home has stalls. I don't know. Last type of joke formula I'm going to share, and there's a couple of others, but we're going to skip them, is what I call classic misdirection. So when I told that joke at the beginning and I said, should sales pros learn how to code? Or I was asked if sales pros should learn how to code only if they constantly miss quota. That's misdirection. Like you guys thought I was going to answer, well, yes, because it helps them understand their buyer a little bit better. That's the serious and boring answer. But,
that's right.
Yeah. So Rodney Dangerfield, classic example of this, said, my doctor told me to watch my drinking. Now I drink in front of a mirror. Brilliant joke. And it should explain to you everything you need to understand about a good joke. It's short, and he uses the "watch my drinking" phrase to mislead you. So I helped start.
I think he also said, like, "Who said you could sleep with my wife?" Everybody.
Exactly. He was the. If you want to understand how jokes work, watch a lot of Rodney Dangerfield, Phyllis Diller, Joan Rivers. They know how to write brilliant jokes. I helped a startup founder. He had a really boring solution, and I couldn't write a joke about the problem he solved. There was no way. I said, "How'd you come up with this business idea?" And here's what he said. He said, "I spent 12 years developing enterprise software in a bank, but left when the branch manager kicked me out of the lobby." Screw you guys. That's a brilliant goddamn joke. I really am. Brilliant, man. Guys, I don't know what's going on down there. We can write also a joke about the impact of not fixing the pain. So how do we paint a picture of not addressing this thing that we solve for them? So I helped a company called EventMobi. I'm happy to share this in a video with you guys. And they wrote this one. And EventMobi, they're a dated joke maybe. They develop they're a SaaS for conference planners, and they eliminate the need to print off agendas for a conference or for a trade show. So the joke that they wrote is the most challenging part of printing programs for your conference is finding a big enough recycling bin to put them in when it's over.
That's
I'll just tell you the joke I wrote with someone else. Hitting quota during pandemic is like what, because, why? And it's good form to end on the double meaning. List 3 things that the two have in common, like that Venn diagram. I can share the outputs with you guys. You can write one on your own. So there's 2 ways to do this. You can write it the way I just described, or that superlative joke. Hitting quota during pandemic is more what than what. So the 2 jokes that I wrote with Ashley early, I'm doing this exact kind of presentation. It needs to be a lot shorter, I admit, at the end of the month. Trying to hit quota during pandemic is more stressful than quarantining with your in-laws.
Oof, God.
God.
It was true than it was funny.
This isn't recorded, Scott.
Ain't nobody wants that.
Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Lisa's in-laws. Okay. The other joke is that we wrote is trying to hit quota during a pandemic is like a coffee bean. It's dark, becomes a grind, and if messed up, is pretty bitter. And again, we did this like in 15 minutes. Like, good jokes aren't written over webinars by people who have never written them. But I'm trying to outline the process to you and how you could apply that creative thinking and knowledge towards writing that opener that makes your prospects laugh. So just in summary, if you can write a great joke that highlights a problem you solve for your prospects or something related to them, you're going to show them that you know them. And the process is really what I want to emphasize, guys. The jokes are secondary. If you can use the joke writing process, you'll better understand your prospects and your own company's so what, who cares. You're going to communicate a little more effectively and be more relatable. You're going to find new ways to say boring things and sound more empathetic, to quote a bunch of buzzwords mashed up on LinkedIn. You're going to stop helping people lose at buzzword bingo, because, I'm sick of it myself. You're going to better understand your prospects so you can better relate, connect, and engage. You're going to exercise your creative muscles. That's not a question. That's meant to be a statement. You're going to warm your prospects up. You're going to make them laugh. You're going to delight them. Like I said, you're going to be more relatable and human. It's going to build your confidence. And it's going to help, if you can write jokes, taking all that stuff we've discussed, you're going to have a little more fun, your prospecting efforts or your discovery calls or demos, whatever. So really quickly, how I help, I do this all through much longer, in-depth remote trainings and workshops for either full teams, where you guys do this in breakout groups. Also, if individual reps from a company want to go through this, or with some other reps from, if you want to go through this with some reps from your own team, you can do that. You can offer a private class for up to 8 reps from a sales team. Or if you guys want to register, I charge $400 for 8 90-minute class, no more than 8 people in class. If you guys register for the open registration and use the discount code Scott, I can knock off some bucks. And so over the course of 8 weeks, I want to help you guys write those jokes. Your classmates will collaborate with you, but it's so much more powerful if you do it with your colleagues and you go through a private class. Because you're all focused on the same stuff. I got classes starting on the 25th and the 26th, depending on which time zone you're in. If you want a different time, message me. We'll figure something out. And yeah, talked about private classes. And if you guys want me to just perform stand-up for your team, like do 30 minutes of stand-up, I'm trying to raise $25K for nonprofits helping with COVID relief efforts. Hey, Michaela, are you still there? That was wrong of me to ask. She's clearly disappeared. But I did a set for her company, and they were a blast. And is anyone still there?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
No.
Nice. I don't blame you. I've rambled long. I've debunked my own philosophies. Be short, be quick, to the point. But I'm trying to raise $25K. I've raised like $13,600. So if you guys are having a virtual happy hour, I'll do 25 to 30 minutes of stand up, not just about sales, about our new kind of like BS reality, but also just regular stuff for my stand up act. So if you guys are in need of a pick me up, pay $500 to me, give $500 to a nonprofit, and I'll entertain you guys for a full half hour. And that's kind of all I got. Let me just get to the next slide. You can see where we can connect. There we go. Any questions, learnings?
I just want to point out that I met with John real briefly a couple weeks ago, and part of it, you know, the joke part would be great, but what he really helps with is figuring out where the holes are, you know, in your game. If you don't know who your ideal customer is, if you don't know what the problem you solve is, what the value you add is, because that's what he's going to ask you, and that's what I really enjoyed working with him. And we haven't even gotten to the joke part, but sorry, it's my craziness here. But really, it helps you figure out as a sales rep, really, you know, if you don't have it dialed in what you're doing, that's what his questions are going to get. I'm going to mute, sorry.
Yeah, I can confirm that. I'm going for the class with John as well, and he's been great. I mean, I'm not the funniest guy in the room by far, but we've had probably 2-3 jokes so far. I haven't used them though yet, John.
That's okay. I just want to thank John and Vlad, my plants on this call, for saying nice things on me.
We get paid in
we're not getting paid. Well, we got to talk about it, John.
Vlad, you know, actually, so Vlad told me he was going to be on this, and I said, why don't you tell the joke we wrote? So I don't want to put you on the spot. It's up to you. I think I can remember it if you don't.
Vlad.
Yeah, Vlad.
I mean, I haven't delivered them yet, so let me just give me.
Come on, Vlad. Come on, Vlad.
You gotta do something.
All right. Here we go. Bad guests are like toddlers. They're friendly, tell you what you want to hear, and at night they turn into monsters. Well,
I like it, but I think you need a dirty diaper in there somewhere.
Probably. Okay.
You're gonna end up with the shit in your apartment.
So Vlad's company, what they do is they help property managers who rent on Airbnb better understand the risk associated with the guests they're renting to. And so they provide intelligence to property management owners. And so the joke that I thought was kind of the one he was going to tell was, Vlad, your company's name again? I'm sorry, give it a plug.
AutoHost.
With AutoHost, we give property owners the intelligence so they don't have to rent to guests who have none.
I like that one.
Because they're destroying property and stuff like that. I left that part out. So
another one I have is sending check-in instructions without vetting your guests. It's like hiring a nanny off Craigslist. It just might work out.
So here's the thing. I'm glad you guys laughed, but if you don't laugh, it's okay. These jokes aren't written for you. They're written specifically for Vlad's prospects, and there's some context to them, which we can't expect you guys to get. And they say it's not funny if you have to explain it. But when we're doing these kind of things, we do have to explain it before we tell the joke. So guys, give Vlad a huge round of applause, and big thanks to John Stern for saying awesome things about me. Great. So my question for you, do you guys have any questions about anything I've talked about to the 6 people who are still left on this call?
So I'd be really curious to ask a question. So typically, you know, the way that you look at your sequences and you're like, yeah, this sequence for outreach was effective, or no, this really missed the mark, was, do they take a meeting with you? Maybe do they move to the next stage? Do they spend money with you? But with what you're presenting, it looks like you can get really, really early validation of, do I understand who I'm selling to? Do I understand their situation, by keeping track of whether or not you get laughs or whether or not you get like really positive reactions on that initial outreach, to see, am I even in the right ballpark?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if you write a great joke, or a sales team writes one great joke that everyone agrees this is gold. Again, you can adapt it for that cold call script. You can adapt it for the cold email. You have to figure out, what do we want to put in the subject line to tease them to open it up. I mean, I would put something in the setup that's hyper relatable to the prospect. And when they open it up, there's the punchline. And then you'd say like, David, comma, you know, and you carry on with the rest of your cold email, you know, script, shall we say. I teach you guys how to write the jokes and think about your prospects and what's meaningful to them. I'm not an expert in cold email conversions, but I get pretty good open rates myself because I tease that kind of stuff. And so that's really where a joke can help you guys get more open rates with emails. You still have to know the science of how to get them to take that meeting and really convert or reply. But if you're sending a sequence and each one has a joke and they start to recognize your name, I'm a firm believer that they're going to want to open your emails. And eventually, if they see value, you still have to demonstrate value. The joke it's not going to help you hit your quota on its own, but it opens the door, breaks the ice, makes you guys likable. And maybe they start to look forward to that weekly email from David McHale.
Killer stuff, man. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So funny enough, Vlad's connect request with me was from a tip that you gave him, John. I don't remember what the line was, but it definitely stood out to me. I'll have to look it up. And it was good. It was good. It was funny. It did resonate.
I think mine was too, and I had to ask Vlad. I was like, "What does this mean?" So I don't know if you remember that, Vlad. I'm gonna have to go back and find that.
You guys need to be
probably
prepared.
great though.
But hey, listen, if Vlad made some of you guys laugh, you were open to the connection. Like I get so many connection requests with nothing in them, and I'm like, this is an opportunity to get someone to like you and remember you, especially if you're trying.
Don't get me started, dude. I have 3,623 pending connection requests right now.
Half of them are from my fake profiles.
How many?
3,623, and probably 3,000 of them have no message whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like if you can use a little humor, if you can use a little humor to demonstrate, like, hey, I understand you. There's a reason why I'm connecting with you, and make them laugh about that problem that they're struggling with, and they go, "That's funny because it's true." They're going to accept you, but they're going to at least probably take the time to compliment the fact that you're original, and they will remember you if you ever call them.
Very true.
Have you ever had anybody with a bad reaction to a joke, like that person that you caught who just got screamed at by their significant other and their business is, you know, having some issues, and you call them up and try to tell them a joke and it's just the worst possible time?
The worst I've ever gotten with that craft beer joke, which is my go-to cold call joke, like 8 times out of 10, is, "Hey, Brian, this is John. If we hadn't connected on LinkedIn, this call will be a lot like a craft beer, unique, refreshing, ice cold. Pause. Okay." So someone didn't appreciate it, and it rattles me. But again, I have really thick skin. Like I don't care. Like I'll just be like, okay. Usually that makes my prospects laugh. Go into it, and I can already tell those people, like, they're not in the mood. Maybe they don't want to talk. I'm not going to press them too hard. Like, but I make most sales leaders laugh with that joke.
Are there any industries you would?
You're gonna bomb on some the same way like with some sales. If you're not like reaching for a sales prospect that might be like a little bit bigger than you normally do, you're not trying that hard. So if you're not like throwing this joke out there, to enough people or whatever, then you're probably not trying hard enough. So not every joke is gonna connect. Not every sales, outreach is gonna connect. But you need to have some failures in there in order to be pushing the envelope, or else you're just doing the same stuff as always.
No, that's it. And it's not a magic bullet. I don't profess this to be a magic bullet. I just profess that if a sales leader or sorry, a prospect gets 10 calls a day and you're the one who manages to make them laugh, they're at least going to give you more time. They're going to let you understand why you're calling. They're going to say, you know what, I needed that. This is a pandemic. There's this weird idea that we can't joke during a pandemic. And yet everyone who I perform stand-up for says we needed that. We need that more than ever. And I'm not trying to train anyone to be a stand-up comedian. That's not a fate I'd wish upon anyone. But if you can learn how to tell one joke to every single one of your prospects, and you could get even 50% success to get them to laugh half the time, you're doing well.
Hey, I got to run, guys, before my family disowns me.
Yep.
John, if you want to stay and chat with the group, I can make you the host.
Yeah, sure.
But I've got a jam. So I have made you the host. You're in control. I appreciate you, John. I thank you so much for sharing with everybody here and everybody here. If John is willing to stay on, keep pinging him, ask him questions, give him shit, challenge him, get some advice from him. Enjoy, learn, share. Appreciate all of you.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
I gotta go.
Everybody.
I gotta go though, or I think my wife might drown me in the lake.
Thank you, Scott.
Good luck, Scott.
All right, y'all.
Scott.
Later, man.
Thanks, Scott.